Now, here we have the quick summary, which I will also read before I end this video. It's already far too long as it is. It says, summary, the procedure adopted at Pace in late 2017 was not just tainted by apparent bias in the actions of the investigating officer, but procedurally unfair in itself. Only my reluctance to sue the government as a former First Minister prevented me from exercising that right earlier. Instead, I offered conciliation, mediation, and then arbitration, which I was prepared to accept as binding. All such attempts at swift and confidential resolution of the legal issues without the expense and confrontation of court proceedings were rejected without consulting the complainers, in case of mediation without initially consulting the complainers, and in the case of arbitration without consulting the complainers at all. There is an overwhelming likelihood, in my view, that the criminal leaks of August 21st and 22nd came from within the government and were committed with the intention of damaging my reputation, but with no regard whatsoever to the interest of the complainers. The advice of my counsel at the outset was that I had a very strong case, which only further strengthened as the process continued. The evidence was forced out of the government by a lengthy and expensive commission process, despite the government having assured the court and my legal team previously that they had produced all relevant documents. This turned out to be untrue. I have yet to read the government's legal advice from external counsel. This is despite 2 parliamentary votes to force its release. It is rare in my experience for the Scottish Government to behave unlawfully. It is surely rarer still for the government to only concede a case when both of external counsels threaten to resign. I understand that expenses being awarded on an agent and client paying basis reflects the court's dissatisfaction with the conduct of the case from the government. That failure was not just due to incompetence. The pattern of government lack of candour and a systemic failure to disclose has been deliberate and consistent since March 2018. It continued through the JR process and my criminal trial. To my astonishment, it continues to this date, with a persistent failure to produce all relevant documents to the parliamentary inquiry, which has forced 2 parliamentary votes and triggered an unprecedented procedure under Section 23 of the Scotland Act. It has also seen the recall of a number of government witnesses to clarify and in some cases correct their evidence. In short, it remains a matter of deep regret that I had no option but to take the Scottish Government to the Court of Session. I did so very reluctantly and only after every other avenue had been exhausted. But courts exist for a reason. They exist because when governments act illegally, there must be remedy for the citizens. In this case, the illegality was finally conceded, but only after a legal process which would have cost upwards of £750,000 of taxpayers' money and which caused immense strain and distress to all involved. The behaviour of the government was in my view a disgrace, but actions have consequences. Accountability is at the heart of the Scottish Parliament. The rule of law requires that those who have acted illegally are held to account. It is now the job of this committee to resolve how that is best done. Signed, Alex Salmond, the 27th of January 2021. Now, sorry guys, I actually read that whole thing out to you. It's fucking massively long and completely boring to most people, but some of the information in there is rather important. I really don't know how anyone can see that the SNP are not neck deep in some serious corruption here and blatantly lying to multiple bodies consistently. Of course, I still think Nicola Sturgeon is the Teflon Don who will just brush this off and carry on regardless. We will have to wait and see. There is certainly more to come from this, and hopefully people are gonna start being arrested. I still, like I said though, remain sceptical that anything will come of it. We can obviously hope though.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.